Alita Battle Angel is a cyberpunk action film directed by Robert Rodriguez, produced by James Cameron, and is based off of the manga by Yukito Kishiro. This film has actually been in development hell for the last 2 decades, as Cameron's been looking to adapt this series ever since the year 2000, after he was introduced to it by Guillermo del Toro. Was it worth the wait? Well, why don't we take a look at it? Rosa Salazar stars as the titular character Alita, a female cyborg who wakes up with no memories of her past. She's cared for by Dr. Ido, played by Christoph Waltz, and hangs around with a boy named Hugo as she begins to explore the mysterious world around her. You have Iron City, where the working class reside, and Salem, a floating sky city where the wealthy are. Alita wants to go to Salem because she actually came from up there, and believes that it may be the key to discovering who she really is. This film is gorgeous. In fact, it's probably one of the best looking films I've seen in ages. I actually had the privilege of seeing this movie in IMAX and in 3D, and man was it worth it. The visuals are the icing on top of the cake that is this film, and the cherry on top is definitely Alita herself. Throughout the entire movie, I was so impressed with how real they made her, never once breaking the uncanny valley, especially given her design. Western Studios really outdid themselves on this film. But visual effects are one thing. How is she as a character? In short, a good one. She's kind and determined, but a bit naive, and this usually works against her because she is a bit of a fish out of water, but at the same time, she knows how and when to defend herself and those she cares about. She also has a really good relationship with Doc. They have this sort of father-daughter dynamic, and it's the emotional center of the movie, and it really works. And it's because Doc is also a good character. He lost his daughter and is therefore very protective of Alita. It may not be a new dynamic, but it's just done so nicely. The action set pieces in this movie are also really good, especially the motorball scene. Not only is it shot well and visually appealing, but seeing this in IMAX and in 3D also immersed me in the experience. But no film is without flaws, and this film definitely has a few big problems. To begin with, the villains in my opinion were either not so developed or just not that intimidating. One of the 2 main villains here is Vector, who rigs the motorball matches and every so often gets controlled by Nova, a scientist from Salem who's also one of the other bad guys. You'd think this would lead to a Emperor and Darth Vader type scenario in that you have a master and servant, and we see how the master has their hands in everything. But here's the difference. We knew Darth Vader before we met the Emperor, and we knew how intimidating he could be just by himself. But Vector doesn't come across as intimidating. If anything, he comes across more as a victim, given that Nova takes control of him every so often. It also comes down to the fact that Mahershala Ali, who plays Vector in this movie, gives a pretty bland performance, which is really bizarre given the fact that he's one of today's best working actors, and here he's just very standard. Nova is also a problem as well. Like I said before, he's supposed to be the guy on top, who's secretly running the show and who we're all supposed to be afraid of, but he's just not that developed a villain. We never understand what his motivations are, as the film seems more concerned with setting him up as the villain for the next film, which in my opinion doesn't really feel like a good idea if you want your audience to return to see Alita defeat him. After all, a hero can only be as good as their villain, but why on earth should we care if we don't understand how big a threat the villain is? But putting that to one side, I still had a blast watching this movie. Its action sequences are great, it's visually stunning, and the characters for the most part are very enjoyable. And hey, as manga and anime adaptations go, we could have done a lot worse, but it's clear to see the amount of passion Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron had for this movie. I really hope this movie doesn't bomb at the box office, because I'd be really interested in seeing a sequel. At the very least, it's made me want to check out the manga. Not only do I recommend seeing this movie, but I'd also recommend, if you can, seeing it in IMAX and in 3D, because it really makes for quite the immersive experience. I'm going to give Alita Battle Angel a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.